Hello everybody, welcome back to Vera's Oddities Showcase, and this time there is a small village just over that hill, and they have something of a little bit of a, I guess we'd call this a historical landmark, because there's this big old gateway, and I don't see like a lever or a door, and nobody appears to be on like guard duty, so I don't think I can get somebody to open it, but what I do have over here is a winch. And this is a brand new, rotatable, interactable redstone block that we can use to gradually provide more and more power, and then it will slowly drain. So if we just keep on holding our right click and actually interacting with this, then eventually we should hopefully see something happen. Whoop. Okay, there we go. So we wander through, and it closes behind us because it ran out of sufficient power to actually power. Unfortunately, despite however impressive you might find that particular piece of redstone, there's heck all back here, because Lord knows I'm not building an entire castle just for a showcase. And yeah, there's a bunch of redstone here, and it is pretty much exclusively just a triple piston extender that's been tiled 5 blocks just to make it seem a little bit more impressive, but mostly it is gears for vertical transmission, because it is so useful to use, and it is then this winch. Now, I'd show you all the redstone here, but that's not why you're here. So, every time that you interact with the winch, it will increase its power by a step of 1 up to the cap of 15, and you can interact with it, I think it's like once every 1.5 seconds or so, and it will then degrade in power every 2 seconds. So, you can use it for like a 30-second delay if you wanted, but it is chiefly used for that. Now, this is a very complicated one, because this is actually just trying to make sure that you use the absolute maximum amount of power, and then if it drops below that maximum amount of power, it then closes again. So this is one of those instances in like a horror movie where one person must operate the lever or else the door will close and everyone will die. So you have to sacrifice somebody inevitably. But a far more simple implementation is over here, and this one only needs, I think, about 5 steps of power. And as you can see on the left there, the, I guess we'd call it a silo, is just like opening up, and in here, this is just straight up using command blocks to get everything running. With just a not version on the other side, with a little piston trap over there that sends a pulse into a little, like, signal delay, so it lasts a bit longer than it otherwise would. But that is purely command blocks, and that's the simplest I could possibly make a machine like this. But of course, you can use this for a number of things, because if you attach a redstone repeater into one of these and power it, you will actually pause the degradation or decay, or however you want to call it, of the signal, which allows you to function like a capacitor. You can also use the gears, if they're active next to a winch and they're facing and rotating in the right direction, you can actually use them to charge up the winches, meaning that you don't have to have a human involved in any fashion. So let's just see if I can actually replicate such a thing really quickly before I move on to other things here. So there's our winch. There is our redstone gear, and if we have a lever, let's see, where are you? See if this rotates the right way. It does not, so we actually want to invert that. And there we go. If there's one on the other side that's rotating in the opposite direction, the wrong direction, it will actually cancel out the other one. But there we have it charging up, and redstone repeater, it's winding down. And we can just pause it, straight up like that. It is now locked, much like a redstone repeater would be, in the same fashion. And off it goes again. So very handy, very convenient. Definitely, I'm under no illusions, this is a very specialized kind of redstone component, but nonetheless an interesting one. The next thing I have to show off, really, for this showcase is Kevin. Hello, Kevin. How are you? So, Kevin and all kobolds, and all goblins, in fact, by default, now actually have a reputation kind of faction to them. Kevin, come back here. Thank you. Just let's not go into the pit with all the redstone. That's probably unwise of you, if I had to say. So if I hop back into game mode 0, then Let's see, I want the faction command. So if I read my current status with the kobolds, my reputation is at 0, which is to say indifferent. They neither hate me nor love me. I could set, using the faction, or interactions with the kobolds, my reputation to be a much higher value, and if the higher that gets, closer up to the value of 100, the more that they will like me. Conversely, if I decrease it, such as by injuring them, just flailing in their direction, killing them, especially if they're witnesses, that kind of thing, they will reduce my reputation with them, and then they will start to be a little less friendly and a little less indifferent. So for purposes of this, I'm actually going to set my faction with the kobolds to, say, -75. So now I should be, yep, you actually don't like me at all, do you? Yep, you don't like me at all. Okay, that's fine, that's fine. I can understand your, I don't know what I did to you, Kevin. But let's just change that to, let's say, 40. So you now like me? Are you still gonna hurt me? No, because you've still got me as a target. Hang on, one moment. Let me just break line of sight, and he might reevaluate his life choices. No, we good? Kevin? Kev? Okay. Thank you, Kevin. I understand that I don't know what presumably happened with your sister. Do you have sisters? That's a good question. Anyways, that is the reputation system, and it can also be applied to subgroups. So, for instance, Kevin here belongs to the global kobold faction, but I could, for instance, change his NBT data and attach him to, say, Greenscale clan, for instance, by changing the faction data inside of his NBT files. Now, these are distinct to every single player. I currently have the 40 reputation with the kobold, but another player by default, based on the config settings, will have a reputation with kobolds of 0, so indifferent again. With goblins, you are set to unfriendly by default, but of course that can also be changed, and that does also mean that you can gain rep with the goblins and have them help you out for various things. Now, there aren't too many things currently implemented at this exact moment with regards to what good reputation will get you. The first and most foremost thing that will happen if you have bad reputation is, of course, Kevin will punch you. But there are a bunch of fun things planned, so there's the options to have people from the particular faction follow you, or help you out in battles, or heal you and your pets, or one option that a bunch of people like to hear inside the Discord channel was the option of potentially using them as couriers. So you give them stuff and then tell them to go find somebody else, and they'll go over there and deliver the items. Kevin, could you come back to the command block, please? Just so I don't lose you. Kevin? Okay, he's going on a mission. Now, unfortunately, not everything I have to say today is good news. Because, well, one slight more piece of good news, I guess, is that I have actually managed to set up a Minecraft 1.14 workspace to start working on various oddities in 1.14. Which is good. You're not going to be seeing anything like that, I think, in 2019, quite probably, and this would, at that point, mark a relatively soft ending to the development of various oddities in 1.12, just because working on one version at a time is about as much as I have the time and the steam to do. I am not paid enough to work on 2 different branches simultaneously by myself, so sorry about that. So yeah, there will probably not be another 1.12.2 release of various oddities, but that's only once we actually get the 1.14 version working, so expect some betas coming out nonetheless for 1.12, fixing up some bugs and adding 1 or 2 small little features. The bad news, however, is that between 1.12 and 1.14, Mojang decided to do something which should probably make anybody in my comments section who knows anything about programming cringe inwardly in the most severe of fashions. And to actually show off what they've done, let me take you to the actual code view of everything. So here we are in a view of the code. Specifically, here we have the entity whale section. And if we go to block, we'll see that there's a very particular naming scheme. So there's block fungus, block force, block mimic chest, block gear, block pillar wood, block pot. All of these, fairly straightforwards, and it tends to follow a function of, most super to, like, least super, meaning the lowest level of the class hierarchy, as it were. So you have, like, your worker ants, who might be block campfire burnt, and above those are, like, the general ants, I guess, who are block campfire, and then you have the queen, which is, like, queen block. That's the kind of way that this goes, from smallest to least. Makes sense. And that is true of everything in 1.12, from the blocks to the entities to fluids to particles, all sorts of things. Pretty much everything follows that same kind of naming convention. Now, naturally, a few things tend to change between versions, how things are performed, for instance, so how an event handler is tacked on, that kind of thing. That's fairly straightforward, that's not a huge problem usually. Most times you just figure out the new protocol or some discrete way of reflecting it, and you can get it back again. Okay. That's not what's happened with 1.14. So here we are inside of the 1.14 workspace for various oddities, and straight away we can see that there are a few problems. About 28,000 of them, and that's after I've actually gone through and tidied some stuff up. And the reason for that is that nothing has changed so far with the various oddities code. That's perfectly fine. What the vast majority of it is having trouble with, though, is in finding anything from vanilla. So as we can see, there's a bunch of vanilla classes down here, MBT data, AI code, entity player itself it can't find, and initially I thought that was that it hadn't actually imported the vanilla code, so it had no idea what it was, and then I realized some stuff was actually still in place. And then my stomach kind of sunk, and I almost threw up. Because if we actually look at the Minecraft code through here, okay, similar structures. We replicate the same structure in various oddities as with vanilla code just to make things cohesive and, like, understandable. Okay. Every single class has had its name reversed. So it's now as though you were, like, picking it up in the world, in English at the very least. So we have bush block, cactus block, cake block, campfire block, all these other blocks, and the same is true also of entities. So even players are now player entity as opposed to entity player, and that's broken basically every single class, every single file inside of various oddities, creating about 30,000 errors. Now, there are ways to fix this. There are people who have cataloged exactly what things changed into what between versions, and they've got a big database and whatnot that you can use to reference it, and then go through every single file to correct them. But that's a lot of stuff here. Like, the blocks alone is quite a list. So that will take me months at minimum before we can even attempt to boot this in the test environment. So I've shipped them off to the Flying Bun, who's a very good friend of mine, I would say, and a very, very long-suffering one, as it would also seem, considering that she's taken on this challenge. And she's going to do some Pythony magic, which is something I've never had to do. It's not something I was ever taught, so I don't know how to use Python in any fashion, so I can't. And she's going to try and loop through that entire catalog and fix up everything here as much as possible, and that will hopefully mean an automated process that can do it in, like, maybe a few hours tops. And then I'll be able to try and start getting this into a dev environment. But for right now, Various Oddities 1.14 exists, but is on fire, in short. So, I don't know why Mojang did this. They are definably the ones at fault here. This is horrific. This breaks basically every single, most basic tenet of programming convention I have ever seen. And I was actually, like, university grade educated in programming, not just self-taught, although I did both. So, yeah, this is bad. I don't know why they did this. It's terrible. It's awful. No one should ever do this. Only villains do this. So yeah, it's So to summarize the news here, just to put a point on this video, 1.14 is coming. When it arrives, 1.12 will cease to be developed for the most part, and also 1.14 is going to be a while. So look out for some more beta releases of 1.12 before then. And with that, hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll catch you all as ever next time.